Today, I'm going to talk about business and ethics. First, I'll look at what is meant by business ethics. Then, I'll examine the kind of ethical considerations companies need to address, how they can go about doing business in a more ethical way, and look at some examples of ethical business practices. So, what are business ethics, and why are they seen as important in today's business climate? Business ethics relate to how a company conducts its business in order to make a profit. Although the primary goal of the company may be to make money, it also recognizes that it has a responsibility towards the society in which it operates. The term corporate social responsibility is often used. And nowadays, many companies have strong corporate social responsibility programs designed to help create a prosperous, inclusive society. Now I'll look at some basic ethical considerations that a company needs to address. The first area is how the company treats its employees. All employees should be treated fairly and with respect. A company that cares for its workers' welfare will tend to have a happier workforce and a lower turnover of staff. It is also important that workers are recruited on a basis of equal opportunity. The second area is how a company conducts its day-to-day business. In a manufacturing business, this includes how suppliers of raw materials are chosen and treated. A good example of this is the fair trade movement. This initiative ensures that small-scale farmers are paid directly and at a fair price for their crops. A company should also look at its policy on paying suppliers and ensure that payments are made on time. Another ethical consideration is the impact the business has on the environment. Manufacturing companies should strive to ensure that production is clean and careful, and look for ways to minimize energy consumption and waste products. Finally, a company can also decide to give something back to the community it operates in. This can be in the form of corporate giving programs, where donations are given to community projects, or by initiating schemes to improve the local community and encouraging employees to work on these schemes.
Hello and welcome to this Learn English Professionals recording brought to you by the British Council. To find out more and to access language activities and audio scripts, visit our Learn English website at www.britishcouncil.org/learnenglish.
Welcome to this week's programme. I have with me in the studio Mark Fletcher, a business angel. Mark, can you explain what a business angel is?
Yes, well, it sounds like someone who is altruistic, but in fact, a business angel expects to make a good return on their money. We usually invest in startups and small business looking to expand. When the company does well, we expect our capital back with a substantial return. Sometimes we group together to make a syndicated deal.
How do these investments differ from bank loans?
In my case, I like to lend between £10,000 and £100,000 to a business. I don't charge interest, so I'm taking a risk with my money. But within 5 years, I expect to get a good return on this investment, about 50 or 60%.
How do you get your money back?
The company either raises money by floating on the stock market or is sold. I will have an agreement with the owners as to how much of the money raised goes to me.
How do you find a company to invest in?
I belong to a network of business angels, and business owners contact us to find an investor. Typically, they give a presentation to a group of prospective investors, and if anyone likes what they see, they put money into the business.
How do you decide who to invest in?
Oh, I go very much by gut feeling. Of course, I need to see business plans, but if I think the company is producing something that there's a market for, and if I think the owners have the drive and ambition to do well, then I'll put my money in.
Are all the businesses you invest in successful?
No, of course not. If I invest in 10 companies, I expect 3 or 4 to go bust, 2 or 3 to do okay, and a couple to be really good. Those are the ones I make my money on. Earlier this year, I got back 10 times the amount I'd invested in one company. This makes up for the investments where I make a complete loss.
And once you've invested your money, is that it? Or do you have any further involvement in the company?
I'm very much a hands-on investor. Before I became a business angel, I ran several successful businesses, which I then sold on. So I've got plenty of experience, and I like to help companies develop and expand. Sometimes I'll expect to become a director of the company. Other times I concentrate on giving financial advice. The great advantage is that I can see what is happening to my money.
Thanks very much, Mark. Now, if anyone is interested in contacting a business angel, you can find out more on our website.
This recording was brought to you by the British Council. To find out more and to access language activities and audio scripts, visit our Learn English website at www.britishcouncil.org/learnenglish.
Hello and welcome to this Learn English Professionals recording, brought to you by the British Council. To find out more and to access language activities and audio scripts, visit our Learn English website at www.britishcouncil.org/learnenglish.
Business books.
Today I'll be talking to the author and business guru, Jared McCall. Jared has written a number of books on business subjects, and his latest, just out in paperback, is called The One-Armed Monkey, 10 Types of New Product. In this book, Jared looks at the way in which an estimated 90% of new products fail within a year of being launched onto the market, and tries to analyse why so many products do fail and why that 10% succeed. Jared, if I may ask, why do you think the world needs another business book?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say that my book isn't just another business book. It's certainly not a dry, boring textbook, but something which, I hope, even the general reader will find of interest.
You're aiming at the bestseller lists, then?
Of course, any author would be.
So what is it that makes your book so special?
Well, instead of just analysing statistics and showing graphs, I use case studies, actual stories of products that failed or were successful. And often, the story of these products is an entertaining read.
Yes, I agree with you there. There's a strong narrative and you're a good writer.
Thanks.
But, and I'm afraid there's a but here,
There always is.
even though I found the book an entertaining read, I'm not sure your use of jargon helps.
Jargon.
Yes, I mean the specialised language you use.
Well, I aimed to reach all readers, so I don't actually use that much jargon.
What I'm thinking of is the names you give each of the 10 product types you describe. The one-armed monkey is what you call a product which will fail.
Yes, after the disastrous toy.
And you call a successful product a silver shadow, and so on and so on.
OK, I take your point. But using these terms, these names, isn't really jargon. I'm just trying to find a quick way to describe different types of product. If you use names like this, it helps people to remember and to identify their product ideas and make difficult concepts clearer and easier to understand.
So you want to help product developers make sure their product isn't a one-armed monkey, but a silver shadow.
Exactly. And where my book is different to a lot of other ones on the market now is that it gives practical advice on how to make sure your new product succeeds.
OK, but I found that all these terms were actually making things more difficult to understand.
Well, ultimately, the market will judge if people agree with what I'm saying or find it useful or inspirational. Then they'll buy the book and start to use the terms. Remember that a phrase like long tail, for example, is quite a recent term.
Sure, but to me, long tail describes something which is a real phenomenon. What I'm not sure about is the 10 different product types described in your book and the use of trying to label and name them all.
I think if you look carefully at the stories I tell, the case histories, you'll find that the names are actually quite useful guides as to why the products succeeded or failed.
OK. Jared McCall, thank you very much. And I certainly hope your book proves to be a silver shadow and not a one-armed monkey.
Thank you.
This recording was brought to you by the British Council. To find out more and to access language activities and audio scripts, visit our Learn English website at www.britishcouncil.org/Learn English.
Hello and welcome to this Learn English Professionals recording brought to you by the British Council. To find out more and to access language activities and audio scripts, visit our Learn English website at www.britishcouncil.org/Learn English.
The car industry.
Hello there. I'm talking to Lee Smith, an automobile sector specialist.
Hello.
Lee, I'm not an expert, but it often seems to me that cars now are becoming more standardised.
How do you mean?
Well, basically, if I look at the traffic passing me as I drive to work each morning, well, all the cars look the same.
Yeah. Sure, you're not entirely wrong. Developments in technology and fuel efficiency is a major factor here, mean that in some ways standard design is inevitable.
Companies are all finding the best way to design a car.
Exactly. At least a car that the market wants right now.
But you're here to tell us about an exception.
Yeah. The other factor in this standardisation, as you call it, is that, quite simply, even though there are still a lot of brand names on cars, there are actually very few automobile manufacturers left.
Really?
Yeah. Toyota, General Motors, Ford and Volkswagen have around 50% of the global market.
Oh.
Even classic British names such as Rolls-Royce and Aston Martin are owned by multinationals, BMW and Ford, respectively. But there is at least one British company who remain proudly independent.
And who's that?
They're called Morgan.
And what's so different about them?
Well, they're a historic company, founded as long ago as 1913, and they've always concentrated exclusively on sports cars.
Like, say, Ferrari?
No, because Ferrari are part of Fiat, one of the other major manufacturers.
Oh.
Morgan have never tried to go commercial on a big scale.
Is that viable, though? How can they compete against such giants?
By doing what they do best, and not changing in a changing world.
They're still making the same cars they made in 1913?
Well, no, of course not. But the style of the cars has remained strikingly constant.
They are very unusual looking, aren't they? Especially these new models.
Yeah, the Aeromax and Life cars. They have a design which is both traditional and very modern.
Yeah, they look quite futuristic, actually.
Exactly. And that's only the outside. The Life car, for example...
Why is it called Life?
Life stands for lightweight, fuel efficient.
OK, but surely all cars today claim to be light and fuel efficient.
They do, but none of them like this one.
How come?
Well, like all Morgan cars, the frame is made of wood.
Wood?
Yes. Not only is it lightweight, the company claim that it is also safer.
Safer?
Yes.
So why don't more companies make wood frame cars?
One simple reason. It's not cheap.
OK, I see.
Added to that, the Life car uses a fuel cell.
Is that a kind of battery?
Yes, kind of, but it allows for better performance.
Interesting. Why aren't these cars everywhere, then?
Well, as I already mentioned, they're not cheap. A basic model will cost you around £30,000, while top-of-the-range models can cost up to £200,000.
Phew.
And that's not all. There's a one-year waiting list for these cars.
Why so long?
Oh, well, they're all entirely hand-built.
Wow.
Yeah. The company have ignored advice from consultants and experts and continue to produce their cars the way they want.
Very brave.
And very successful, apparently.
Would you say then that Morgan is an exception or the way forward?
That's a difficult question to answer. There's no way Ford are going to restructure themselves along those lines.
A year before you can buy a Mondeo.
No way. But for a niche market, Morgan are a company to watch.
Lee, thanks.
Thank you.
This recording was brought to you by the British Council. To find out more and to access language activities and audio scripts, visit our Learn English website at www.britishcouncil.org/Learn English.
Hello and welcome to this Learn English Professionals recording, brought to you by the British Council. To find out more and to access language activities and audio scripts, visit our Learn English website at www.britishcouncil.org/Learn English.
Cinema and politics.
You may have heard recently about what is being called the return of political cinema, following recent releases such as Munich and The Constant Gardener. So today I'm going to look at what political cinema is and give a little overview of the history of political filmmaking in Hollywood. First of all, what do I mean by political cinema or political films? To me, the terms refer to films that make people aware of political or social situations. To give a recent example, the film Hotel Rwanda caused many people to take notice of the political situation in Rwanda for perhaps the first time. The dramatic imagery of film can often be far more powerful than news reports. For many, the heyday of political filmmaking was the 1970s. Watergate, the Vietnam War, and mainstream actors with social consciences such as Jane Fonda, Robert Redford and Warren Beatty made for a number of political films. Think of All the President's Men, which detailed the scale of corruption in Watergate, or Apocalypse Now, which graphically portrayed the horror of the Vietnam War. Political filmmaking didn't start in the 70s, though. Back in the 1940s and 50s, Hollywood produced films detailing social problems such as unemployment and alcoholism. In 1967, Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, a comedy about a white couple whose daughter brings home a black fiancé, covered what was then pretty much a taboo subject, that of interracial relationships. As I said, the 70s saw a sudden increase in political films, which carried on to some extent into the 80s, with the release of films such as Gandhi, which won 8 Oscars, and Cry Freedom, another Attenborough film, this time about Steve Biko, a South African activist who died in police custody. The 90s is not generally seen as a good decade for political cinema. Schindler's List, Spielberg's powerful film about the Holocaust, stands out, as does Malcolm X, a biography of the black American activist. Which brings us to the present decade, and the so-called revival of the political...
This recording was brought to you by the British Council. To find out more and to access language activities and audio scripts, visit our Learn English website at www.britishcouncil.org/Learn English.
Hello, and welcome to this recording brought to you by the British Council.
Cities, cities, cities. For the first time ever, more people now live in cities than in the countryside.
Hello, and welcome to Visions of the Future. This week, we're discussing the growth of cities in the 21st century. In the studio, we have the environmentalist Sue Shaw and Masako Ito, an urban planner based in Tokyo. For the first time in human history, more people now live in cities than in the countryside. Today, Tokyo is the world's largest conurbation. The combined cities of the Tokyo Bay Area now have a population of 28 million. Masako, how has Tokyo solved the problem of transport?
Well, many Tokyo residents would say that the city's transport problems have not been solved. Tokyo is different from most cities in developing countries because it has many suburban railway lines. These lines bring commuters to the Yamamote Line, the circular line around the city centre, and to the city's 12 subway lines.
Rail travel seems to be the answer.
Yes, it is really. In addition, there are expensive tolls on the city's urban expressways. Train travel is 1.5 times faster than travel by car, and city centre parking is very expensive.
Right. So Tokyoites don't use cars that much?
Well, you know, before you can buy a car in Tokyo, you must prove that you have a place to park it. Parking spaces can cost as much as apartments to rent. New roads are built in Tokyo, but priority is given to new train lines.
So the train is king in Tokyo, Sue. Anything to add?
Tokyo is a good model for our future megacities to aspire to, but, and this is a big but, Japan is a wealthy country, and most of the rail system was present before Tokyo developed, or was built as the city grew. Most of our new megacities will be in Asia and Africa, where the resources to develop a transport infrastructure similar to Tokyo's just aren't present.
What can these cities do?
They must do all they can to stop the car from becoming the main means of transport. Cars bring pollution, and the construction of new roads can destroy the fabric of a city as they divide communities and lead to the building of new types of housing, usually high apartment blocks.
So,
integrated transport systems that take into consideration local factors are the answer. Take Kolkata, for example. There, hand-pulled rickshaws are being included in the plans for the transport system alongside buses and trams. Bangkok and Manila have built overhead rail systems. These are cheaper and quicker to build than expensive underground subway lines.
So, for the future megacities, the message is forget about cars.
Most definitely.
I'd agree with that too.
We hope you've enjoyed this recording. To find out more about the British Council and the services we offer, contact your local British Council office or go to www.britishcouncil.org. Bye for now.
Hello and welcome to this Learn English Professionals recording, brought to you by the British Council. To find out more and to access language activities and audio scripts, visit our Learn English website at www.britishcouncil.org/Learn English.
Dr. Grant, could you explain in a few words what the greenhouse effect actually means?
Well, in simple terms, the sun heats the Earth's surface and the Earth radiates energy back out into space. Some of the radiation gets trapped in the atmosphere by greenhouse gases. This trapped radiation warms the atmosphere and some of it goes back down to the Earth, making it hotter than normal. This is the greenhouse effect.
So, is carbon dioxide the problem?
Yes, and other gases too. Methane being released from paddy fields, commercial oil and gas from landfills, vegetation left to rot without oxygen. These days, there are more greenhouse gases than ever because of human activities, and especially the burning of fossil fuels.
What kind of problems do scientists foresee?
Well, ice caps melting and sea levels rising mean that eventually cities like London, New York, Sydney and Tokyo will be submerged. This is difficult to imagine, of course.
It seems incredible. No wonder scientists are worried.
Well, some scientists are optimistic. They believe that positive feedbacks from ice clouds and their water vapour could have an impact on global warming. Other scientists are more sceptical. They suspect that we have been wrong in our initial analyses of the situation and might need to go back to the drawing board.
So, are you saying that some scientists don't believe in the greenhouse effect?
No, I wouldn't go that far. In fact, without the greenhouse effect, the planet would be frozen and no life forms would exist.
Is there anything that could protect us from global warming?
I'm glad you asked me that. Yes, volcanoes. When a volcano erupts, it throws debris up into the stratosphere. This protects the Earth from solar energy by scattering the sunlight. Of course, the best thing that we can do is to address the problem seriously on a world level. That's where the Kyoto Treaty enters the picture. If all of the governments in the world would commit themselves to making a real effort to work together on this issue, we might be able to slow down the process and work out a solution.
So, how worried do we need to be?
That depends. First of all, global warming isn't going to affect all areas of the planet to the same degree. Things like the collapse of glaciers take hundreds of years, so we are talking about a slow process here.
Slow enough for us to do something to prevent a catastrophe?
Well, let's hope so.
This recording was brought to you by the British Council. To find out more and to access language activities and audio scripts, visit our Learn English website at www.britishcouncil.org/learnenglish.
Hello and welcome to this Learn English Professionals recording, brought to you by the British Council. To find out more and to access language activities and audio scripts, visit our Learn English website at www.britishcouncil.org/learn-english.
Work skills. Coaching people.
Pretty useful. I'm going to spend the last few minutes summing up the main points and offering you some coaching tips that hopefully you'll find useful. Whether you're just starting out as a coach or whether you want to improve your coaching skills and learn to be a better coach. First of all, set up regular meetings, one-to-one meetings. That way, you'll develop a relationship with your employee and you'll be providing him with an opportunity to share his ideas with you. Schedule a series of meetings in advance. You might have to change the date or the time of a meeting, but at least then your employee, or coachee, will see that you are serious. Don't fall into the trap of comparing the performance of the person you are coaching with the performance of somebody else. Each individual should be treated as a unique situation. This will affect your training style. You should adapt and adjust accordingly. Think carefully about the starting date and the finishing date. Never start coaching until you have built up a relationship with your employee, and don't stop working on that relationship until the coaching stops. Don't sit across the table from the person you are coaching. This creates an adversarial relationship. Sit side by side or at right angles to each other. It's also a good idea to use a neutral place and not your office. Rather than base a coaching conversation around an employee's weakness or a problem, try approaching it in a positive way. Use the opportunities to build upon the coachee's strengths and explore ways of profiting from opportunities. Above all, listen. Listen to everything your coachee has to say and listen well. Listen actively and attentively and try not to intrude with your own ideas. It is the coachee who sets the agenda. It's your role to listen and to help him reach his full potential. Similarly, you should avoid giving advice. Instead, just try to provide information that the person will find useful for planning their next course of action. Watch your language. Try to avoid negatives like, "I don't think," or "you shouldn't." Praise and encourage as much as possible. Use expressions like, "What if we tried to," or "Another option might be." Similarly, watch your body language. You must avoid demotivating your coachee at all costs. Finally, never coach when you are upset or in a bad mood. You will end up taking things out on your coachee, and that is counterproductive and unfair. Wait until you feel calm and are able to focus 100% on the task at hand. even if this means postponing a meeting. Right, I think that's everything, so I'll open the floor to any questions.
This recording was brought to you by the British Council. To find out more and to access language activities and audio scripts, visit our Learn English website at www.britishcouncil.org/Learn English. Hello and welcome to this Learn English Professionals recording, brought to you by the British Council. To find out more and to access language activities and audio scripts, visit our Learn English website at www.britishcouncil.org/Learn English.
Work skills. What are competencies?
Thank you. Today's lecture is called Competencies, Important for the Business and the Individual. I'm going to give you a brief introduction first, then I'll look at competencies from a business perspective, showing how HR uses them to make the business more efficient. After that, we'll look at how competencies can help individuals. I'll make a few short points to sum up, and then, if there's time, I'll answer any questions that you might have. Competencies is a buzzword today. When I started working in the world of business, competencies were unheard of. They existed, of course, but we hadn't given them a name, and we certainly didn't divide them and subdivide them in the way that we do today. A competency is a personal characteristic that describes what you do well, and usually what you do better than everyone around you. Everybody is good at something, so everybody has competencies. What's important is how we use them, both at a business level and as individuals. Now, businesses exist to make money. The goal of people who run businesses is to increase productivity and make more money. Over recent years, organisations have seen the benefits of using competencies for human resource management purposes. In the past, we used to focus on whether or not a worker was successfully completing his or her work activities. If the answer was yes, then everything was okay. But sometimes a worker will successfully complete his activities without affecting outputs or results at all. And what's the point in that? Where's that going to get the company? Or the employee, for that matter? Organisations need to give their clients or customers exactly what they want. They need results. Now, when competencies are tied to the organisation's culture, they enable them to achieve their full potential. If results are clearly defined, then it's easy to identify the competencies needed to achieve them. HR departments spend a lot of time and effort on identifying the competencies that are required in order to achieve the results that are desirable. And then they spend more time finding the individual or individuals who are able to demonstrate that they already possess those competencies. Sometimes the appropriate candidate is already working for the company, but in the wrong department. Sometimes HR has to look outside the organisation to find the best man or woman for the job. As an individual, whether you're working or looking for a job, it's essential that you're able to identify your own competencies so that the people in the right places know that you are a potential candidate, or indeed the best candidate for the job. It's a two-sided thing. If you don't identify specific competencies and let people know that you have them, then how will HR know that you're the right person for the job? If you're looking for a job, then you need to be very careful about which competencies you include in the CVs you're sending out. If you're already inside a company but want to move on or up, then you have to make sure your direct line managers are fully aware of any competencies that you've developed since the last time they looked.
This recording was brought to you by the British Council. To find out more and to access language activities and audio scripts, visit our Learn English website at www.britishcouncil.org/Learn English.
Hello and welcome to this Learn English Professionals recording, brought to you by the British Council. To find out more and to access language activities and audio scripts, visit our Learn English website at www.britishcouncil.org/learnenglish.
Complaining. Good morning, Mr. Johnson. How can I help you?
Well, I'd like to talk to you about Tim Bond, the department manager.
What seems to be the problem?
Well, ever since Sandra left the department, I feel like I've been targeted to do all her work, as well as mine. Tim has made me work overtime. I'm expected to attend too many meetings, and I seem to be spending a lot of my time doing unnecessary paperwork.
I'm sorry to hear that.
And on top of that, I'd specifically asked if I could leave early last Friday, as I'd done a lot of overtime during the week. But we had a deadline on Friday afternoon, and even though I'd finished my specific work, I was expected to help other colleagues finish their work too.
But surely that is a positive sign showing that Mr. Bond has a lot of trust in you, in getting you to help other colleagues.
Yes, but I feel like I'm being singled out. Other colleagues get to leave early, and they don't have such a lot of work to do.
So you feel he's been making unrealistic demands on you?
Yes, absolutely.
Do you think it's because Mr. Bond is unaware of what you're doing?
Well, he never seems to ask us to do a job. He just delegates. And that's another thing. He never listens.
Right. Have you approached Mr. Bond about this particular problem?
I've tried to approach him, but whenever I go to his office, he is either in meetings or he is never there. It seems like he just has no time for us.
Well, at this stage, it would be better if you approached him directly. If nothing else, showing that you've tried to solve the problem yourself before you take it further makes it clear that you're not just a complainer and can boost your credibility. Why don't you send an email requesting a meeting with him in private?
I'd be a bit worried about his reaction. I wouldn't know what to say.
Well, firstly, you'll need to plan what you are going to talk about before going ahead with a meeting. You can always take notes to which you can refer. This shows that you have considered what you need to discuss.
OK.
This is obviously a delicate situation, so be very careful not to criticise, as this could bring on a defensive reaction. You need to be diplomatic when you speak to him. If after you have spoken to him in a rational way, you still find he is being unreasonable, come and speak to us, and we can arrange a meeting between the three of us. But do remember, you need to have evidence for us to be able to take further action.
OK. I'll send him an email now to request a meeting, and we'll see what happens from there. Thanks for your advice.
Good luck, and let us know the outcome.
This recording was brought to you by the British Council. To find out more and to access language activities and audio scripts, visit our Learn English website at www.britishcouncil.org/learnenglish.
Hello and welcome to this Learn English Professionals recording brought to you by the British Council. To find out more and to access language activities and audio scripts, visit our Learn English website at www.britishcouncil.org/learnenglish.
Dealing with conference calls.
Good morning. Welcome to the Softcell Incorporated First Quarter 2008 Quarterly Results Conference Call. At this time, all participants are in listen-only mode, but the floor will be open for your questions following the introductory remarks. I'd now like to turn the conference over to Ms. Marie Tascon, Senior Director of Investor Relations. Please go ahead, madam.
Good morning. Thanks for joining us. Speaking today is Softcell CFO Peter Goody, joined by COO Jim W. Brooke for the Q&A session with analysts. Please note that the information you'll hear during our discussion today may consist of forward-looking statements regarding revenue and margins. Actual results could differ materially from our forecast. To view the supporting slides while listening, log on to softsell.com/investor. With that, I'll turn the call over to Peter Goody.
Thank you, Marie. It's good to be on this call to report our best quarter ever, with the highest revenue and earnings in SoftSell's history. Revenue grew 35% year over year to $9.6 billion, an increase of almost $2.5 billion over the previous December quarter's record-breaking results. Which, ladies and gentlemen, brings us to our final results. In closing, we believe these outstanding results reflect the excellence of our innovative products. We are very enthusiastic about our announcements for 2008, including new SoftTalk software and an updated SoftPro.
With that, I'd like to open the call to questions. Please limit yourselves to one question only.
Our first question will come from the line of Jane Bratworth with Morgan Stanley.
On the SoftTalk expectations for 2008, are you guys providing any type of update today?
We remain very sure about hitting the 10 million goal for 2008.
The next question comes from Ahmed Jamal with Merrill Lynch.
Jim, in terms of the SoftTalk rollout internationally, there's been a lot of talk about China. Anything specific relative to the China market?
We open our first stores in China this year. We'll also be rolling out additional European countries during 2008.
Next question from Kurt Abramsky with Deutsche Bank.
Could you give us any either quantitative or qualitative commentary on how European SoftTalk uptake is faring versus your US experience?
Kurt, we just launched in France in November and in the UK and Germany a bit earlier. So we have very limited experience, but we are very happy with all the launches so far.
The next question comes from Jeanne Beauvoir with Credit Suisse.
Peter, is it too early to offer a little more color on the SoftTalk seasonality question? Your guidance obviously implies seasonality for the whole company.
We've not yet been through a March quarter with SoftTalk, so we don't have any history to go by, as we do with other products. We can report in April, but I am able to comment.
Time for just one final question.
And that will come from Tim Liu with Goldman Sachs.
Yeah, I'd like to ask you, Peter, about your overall market guidance. It's good to hear you're not seeing any weakness. I understand your products are unlikely to be in the most economically exposed segment. But is there likely to be some exposure if we see, for example, a recession in Europe as well as the US? In your 10% growth forecast, have you assumed some kind of economic weakening within Europe specifically?
The 10% is based pretty much on a very concrete situation, how we see the trends. It's something that we feel is quite solid.
Thanks very much, Tim, and thanks to everyone. A replay of today's call will be available as a webcast on softsell.com/investor and via telephone. The number for the telephone replay is 989-313-2111 and the passcode is 5237883. Replays will be available at 5 p.m. Pacific Time today.
Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes today's presentation. We thank everyone for your participation and have a wonderful day.
This recording was brought to you by the British Council. To find out more and to access language activities and audio scripts, visit our Learn English website at www.britishcouncil.org/learn English.
Hello and welcome to this Learn English Professionals recording, brought to you by the British Council. To find out more and to access language activities and audio scripts, visit our Learn English website at www.britishcouncil.org/Learn English.
Art and Business is an organisation that develops creative partnerships between business and the arts. Peter Jones is going to talk about the company's ideas and tell us about some of their success stories. Peter, maybe you could begin by telling our listeners why Art and Business was created.
Well, in the 21st century, productivity is no longer a matter of machines. The success of a company depends on its people and on the creativity of its people. It makes sense that the way to increase productivity is to stimulate creativity.
And what better way to stimulate creativity than through reading books?
Exactly. Every reader knows that a good book can stimulate the imagination and the intellect, get you thinking along lines you might not have thought of before, open up new worlds.
So, have you had any help in setting up the project?
Yes. The London Libraries Agency and an organisation called the Reading Partnership work with us on this project. We're trying to use the power of the written word to motivate staff in the workplace. In a recent survey, 700 business leaders were asked which book had inspired them and had a positive influence on their career. They were able to choose any kind of book, any kind at all. Only about 40% chose a business book. Most people chose a work of fiction, a novel, a play, or even poetry.
How can reading help somebody to become a more creative worker?
Successful managers need to be well-rounded people. They need active imaginations. When they interpret fictional scenarios, they are using their creativity. Readers combine imaginative skills with critical and analytical skills.
Are we talking about the right and left sides of the brain?
Yes. Our logical left side of the brain interprets the language of a book. The creative right side looks at the forms of expression. The left side analyses the plot, while the right side is more interested in the relationships between characters, the emotional aspects.
How does this transfer to the world of business?
Creative ideas make businesses more competitive. Shared reading experiences improve communication and morale at work.
Can you give listeners some examples of how this scheme has been brought successfully into the workplace?
Employees at W.H. Smith have stuck poems and quotations above their desks for inspiration.
Well, W.H. Smith deals in books. What about other examples?
The telecommunications company Orange set up a project called Talk Books at Work. They discovered that encouraging employees to read helped them to develop their linguistic and interpersonal skills. Marks & Spencer has set up reading groups at work. The groups cut across the usual hierarchies, and working relationships have improved greatly.
This recording was brought to you by the British Council. To find out more and to access language activities and audio scripts, visit our Learn English website at www.britishcouncil.org/Learn English.
Hello and welcome to this Learn English Professionals recording, brought to you by the British Council. To find out more and to access language activities and audio scripts, visit our Learn English website at www.britishcouncil.org/Learn English.
Good afternoon. Today on Crime Check, we're going to talk about repeat victims. People who are victims of crime more than once. First of all, we bring you the sad story of Ruth and Harold Saunders from Hull, who have had their house burgled no fewer than 8 times in the last 3 years. Worth an entry in the Guinness Book of Records, you might think. But for Ruth and Harold, it's no joke. Ruth, why do you think you've been burgled so many times?
I wish I knew. It's a nightmare. We bought this house because it looks out onto the playing fields, and we thought it was the perfect house for our retirement.
When were you first burgled?
3 years ago, just a week after we'd moved in. It was as if the burglars were waiting for us.
Do you feel sorry that you moved there now?
Oh, definitely. If we had known we were going to have this sort of trouble, we wouldn't be living here. We would have chosen somewhere safer. But now we can't even sell the house because everyone knows the burglars like it. No one will buy it. We can't escape from this neighbourhood. We're just waiting for the next break-in.
Do you know who the burglars are?
We think so, but we can never prove anything. You see, people can watch the house from the playing fields, and there are a number of youths who we see watching the house. They hang around there smoking in the afternoons. I'm frightened to go to the shops in case they break in while I'm away.
Have you tried calling the police?
Oh, yes, several times. But these youths always get away by running into the woods on the other side of the playing fields, and the police don't bother to go after them.
And what have you had stolen?
Oh, all sorts of things on different occasions. They never take much, but they always seem to come back. They've taken the television twice. If we'd known they were going to come back, we wouldn't have bought a new television after the first burglary. But a week after we bought it, the burglars broke in again.
What else have they taken?
Oh, apart from the television and the video, nothing very valuable. But then we don't have anything else which is very valuable. It's annoying, really, and they do a lot of damage when they break in. I sometimes think we should leave a door open. If we left the door open, at least they could come in without doing any damage.
So what are you going to do about this situation?
What can we do about it? We'd be happier if we'd stayed in our old house. If we still lived there, I'm sure we wouldn't have been burgled once. We were there for 40 years without a single problem.
Marilyn Brooks, you are Chief Crime Prevention Officer for South Yorkshire Police. Is there really nothing they can do?
No, there are things they can do, though I must say first that I do feel sorry for them.
Well, what can they do?
If I were them, I'd have had a burglar alarm put in straight away. In fact, I'm surprised the insurance company hasn't insisted on that already.
Well, they have said that, but we can't afford one of those. We only have our pension, and burglar alarms cost thousands of pounds.
Well, have you thought of putting a burglar alarm box on the wall? That puts some thieves off. Also, you should talk to the neighbours and ask them to keep an eye on your home when you're out.
But why do the burglars keep coming back to the Saunders house? I mean, 8 times is a lot, isn't it?
Well, there are several things here. Obviously, it is easy to watch the house from the playing fields. And also, burglars tend to talk amongst themselves. They tell each other which houses are easy to break into and what things the houses still have in them. Also, they wait a few months until they think the owners have replaced the things that were stolen. After all, burglars prefer to steal something that's brand new. And another thing you have to consider is that they might...
This recording was brought to you by the British Council. To find out more and to access language activities and audio scripts, visit our Learn English website at www.britishcouncil.org/learnenglish.
Hello, and welcome to this recording brought to you by the British Council.
Conservation and restoration of cultural heritage.
Hi, Lynn. How's it going?
Oh, not so bad.
How was your summer? Didn't you go on some field trip in Eastern Europe or something?
That's right. 6 weeks on my hands and knees digging for treasure.
Did you find any?
Not much. Lots of pottery fragments, some bones, a few tools.
I hope you got paid for it.
You must be joking. It was run by the local university research group. They don't have any money. You make your way there and pay for your own accommodation and meals.
So you were cheap labour for the professors then?
Oh, don't be so cynical. No, they were really helpful. I learnt a lot.
Oh, yeah? Like what?
Well, first there was the mapping of the site. They used digital photography and GIS, which I hadn't done before. Then there's the excavation itself. scraping away for hours, which can get a bit tedious, and it all has to be recorded. The location and description of every artefact is put into a database.
Don't you have to be careful when you're excavating? I'd be afraid of breaking something priceless.
Oh, sure. You have to move the earth away very slowly with a trowel, sometimes even a toothbrush. But everything you find has a story to tell. Pollen samples tell you about forest clearance and crop cultivation. Animal teeth and bones showed they kept livestock. Looking at stone axes can tell you what sort of animals they hunted. The best part of the dig was the midden.
What's that?
It's where they dumped domestic waste. It contains all sorts of treasures. The highlight for me was finding a small clay figure. Imagine holding something in your hand that was made by a human being 6,000 years ago.
So, have you expanded the sum of human knowledge?
I think so. The site is giving them a lot of new information about that part of the Black Sea coast in Neolithic times. And it'll be a big tourist attraction when they open it up to the public in a couple of years. They've got plans to get some international funding and make it into an archaeological park, but they'll still preserve the landscape and the character of the place.
Will you get your name in the brochure?
Well, you never know.
We hope you've enjoyed this recording. To find out more about the British Council and the services we offer, contact your local British Council office or go to www.britishcouncil.org. Bye for now. Hello and welcome to this Learn English Professionals recording, brought to you by the British Council. To find out more and to access language activities and audio scripts, visit our Learn English website at www.britishcouncil.org/Learn English.
Ah, Rachel, good to see you again. What can I do to help you?
Well, as you know, I run a small company manufacturing children's clothes.
Yes, and it's doing rather well, if I remember correctly.
Yes. I've recently increased production, and I'm very happy with my sales figures. In fact, I've had some interest from overseas retailers wanting to sell my clothes.
Ah.
I'd also like to be able to buy materials from abroad. What I'd like to know is if I can make and accept payments in foreign currencies.
We offer full foreign exchange services, so there shouldn't be a problem. We have an extensive foreign correspondent bank network, so funds can easily be transferred worldwide.
So this bank is part of a network of foreign banks?
That's right. The advantage is that payments can be made and received quickly and efficiently, and at the lowest cost to you and your suppliers and purchasers. You can do this by wire transfer. It's the fastest and safest way to transmit money around the world. Using our services, you can send international wires in foreign currency. You pay lower fees than for international sterling wires, and you reduce risk because you lock in the exchange rate and know the full cost of the transaction before the wire is sent.
How exactly does this reduce risk?
Currency exchange rates fluctuate, so if you send a wire in sterling, you won't know the exact exchange rate applicable when the wire is received and the funds converted into the foreign currency. You could find yourself under or overpaying your supplier. Using the supplier's currency may also mean you can negotiate more favourable pricing of materials.
I see. And the same applies for my customers. If I use their currency, I won't be in danger of over or undercharging them.
Exactly.
What happens if a foreign customer wants to pay by cheque?
We offer foreign currency cheque conversions for a wide range of countries. We can even offer next-day credit for many countries, so you don't have to wait weeks for the cheque to clear. All you have to do is complete a foreign cash letter agreement and send it, along with the cheque and a deposit slip, to our foreign cheque processing centre.
So I shouldn't have any problems dealing with foreign currencies.
No.
Now, I've got another question.
This recording was brought to you by the British Council. To find out more and to access language activities and audio scripts, visit our Learn English website at www.britishcouncil.org/Learn English.
Hello and welcome to this Learn English Professionals recording brought to you by the British Council. To find out more and to access language activities and audio scripts, visit our Learn English website at www.britishcouncil.org/Learn English.
Work skills. Customer service orientation.
Good morning. My secretary told me that you had some things to discuss with me, so how can I help?
Well, firstly, thank you for seeing us, and we are sorry to trouble you, but we would like to complain about one of the members of staff in your courses office. She has been very rude when dealing with our queries about our exam results.
And this is not the first time it has happened. It is not only exam results, but there are other times too when I have not been happy with her attitude.
Yes. Oh dear, I'm sorry to hear that. Can you be a bit more specific with what exactly has happened?
Well, my tutor told me I could collect my results until 2 p.m. from the course's office. And on our classroom wall, there is a big notice which says that the office is open every day until 2. However, when I got there yesterday at 1:45, the course's office assistant told me she was closing early. When I told her that I could not come back later when the office is reopened at 4, she just replied, "It's not my problem." I felt quite offended by her attitude, and this is not the first time she has replied in this rude manner.
And when I went in with a query about my results, she started to argue with me that she hadn't received our results. She was very direct, and then she went to answer the phone and told me to come back another time.
Yes, that reminds me of the time when I had to wait for assistance for 10 minutes because she was talking on the phone to her friend, talking about the weekend.
I'm sorry, but that is not professional at all.
Right. Well, thank you for voicing your concerns. I'm very sorry you've had these problems.
Well, it's not only us who have had problems. Other students have expressed their concerns too about her rudeness and that she has given out wrong results to wrong students. She just reads them from the list on the computer but doesn't check them. It happened to one of our classmates who was expected to have top exam results, but he was told he had failed. When he went to query it with his tutor, he discovered he had passed, but the person who was next to him on the list had failed.
Well, I'm really surprised to hear that you've had such negative experiences.
I don't think it projects a positive image for the college, especially as potential students could be put off by her negativity.
Well, I am glad that you've brought this matter to my attention, and I suggest you leave it with me. I will have a word with the person concerned and her manager.
We hope you can resolve the problem. I think the least she can do is smile when she sees a student.
Yes, and it really bothers me when she doesn't put our needs first. If she is doing some work at her desk, she will not attend to us until she has finished. We often have to wait for at least 5 minutes.
I suggest you leave it with me, and I'll see what I can do. In the meantime, if you have any other concerns, please come and see me again. This is obviously a matter I need to take seriously, since, as you yourselves have suggested, it can affect the image of our college, and our good reputation is very important to us.
Thanks. We hope it can be resolved soon.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
This recording was brought to you by the British Council. To find out more and to access language activities and audio scripts, visit our Learn English website at www.britishcouncil.org/Learn English.
Hello, and welcome to this recording brought to you by the British Council.
Change management.
Hi, Sue. How are things?
Fine, yeah.
OK, now, about the change in your work routine, you're going to work Saturdays from next month.
Yes, but why should I have to work on Saturdays? No one's told me why this is necessary.
I'm sorry, this should have been explained to you. We get a lot of people calling now on Saturdays for information about our products. It's important that we answer these questions.
Is that okay? Any more questions?
No. OK.
Great. Well, how's your course coming along? You're learning how to make websites.
The course is great. It's not that difficult. I'm helping my son make a website at home. It's fun.
Great. You'll be able to work on our site soon then.
Sure. What's happening in the other departments? Is someone there working on Saturdays too?
I'm afraid I can't tell you that at the moment. Because they're different departments, I can't say, really.
Are there any other courses I can take after the website designer course finishes?
There are one or two that could be useful. Let's talk again about this once you've finished the web course.
OK. You know, Bob, I'd like to ask you something. It's good that you take the time to talk to me about my work and things. But don't you think it'd be a good idea to talk things through together? You know, have a meeting with everyone in our department, see what everybody thinks, all together. If we talk things through together, I think we could come up with some great ideas on how to improve things here.
I agree, Sue. It would be good for everyone to meet together, especially now that we've got so many changes coming along. You know, the problem is that we haven't got a room big enough for us all to meet together, so...
It was just an idea.
We hope you've enjoyed this recording. To find out more about the British Council and the services we offer, contact your local British Council office or go to www.britishcouncil.org. Bye for now. Asha, chaos theory seems to be a branch of physics or mathematics. You're an economist, so how does it influence your line of work?
Well, in a number of ways. I'm responsible for financial development programs in many parts of the world, so forecasting long-range trends and making predictions on the basis of present evidence is what I do. Chaos theory was developed by scientists trying to explain the movement of the planets and changes in environmental conditions. Both of these things are also about making long-term predictions on the basis of present evidence.
Are many economists involved in this field?
An increasing number. In the 1990s, a lot of economists began to look at chaos theory as a way of providing models for forecasting.
What kind of models are we talking about here?
Well, that's a good question because, of course, the basic idea of chaos theory is that there aren't any models as such. There aren't guaranteed forms, but rather patterns of change and development.
Doesn't that mean that forecasting is impossible?
No, but it certainly makes it more of a challenge. Mandelbrot, who did the experiment with stock exchange prices, for example, noted that although the outcomes were variable, there were in fact certain constants. What we have to do is make sure we know what these are and take into account all the possible variables.
But do economics and finance work in the same way as weather conditions or the movement of plants?
Well, no, of course not. But there are certain underlying similarities. In the past, people thought of these things as linear systems. Now we know they're not.
What do you mean by linear system?
Well, for example, in a classic linear system, if I do A, then I know that B will happen and C will occur as a result of this, and so on. But according to chaos theory, a number of variables can change what will happen between A and B, and then between B and C.
Sounds complicated.
Yes. Well, it is complicated. There's no escaping that. However, a lot of what chaos theory teaches us is simply about accepting uncertainty. We have to accept uncertainty. We can't guarantee that things will turn out as we planned them when working with complex, non-linear systems, nor sometimes with simple systems.
Hello and welcome to this Learn English Professionals recording brought to you by the British Council. To find out more and to access language activities and audio scripts, visit our Learn English website at www.britishcouncil.org/learnenglish.
Work skills. Decision-making techniques.
So, the 6 thinking hats is a tool that anybody can use when they have to make an important decision. It was created by Edward de Bono. He's got a book with the same title, so if you're interested, you can go away and read that later. The technique makes you look at a decision from a number of different perspectives. It makes you a better decision maker because it forces you to consider points of view that are outside your normal perspective. So what that means is that you start to understand a complex decision, and this is important. It helps you to see opportunities which you might never have seen. We all have different ways of approaching a decision. Some people are rational and positive, others are negative. Then we have the emotional people and the creative or intuitive. This technique teaches us to think like all of these people, mix the strengths of all of them, and then make the best decision. So, we start off with a decision that you have to make. You can do this now if you like. You don't need to tell anyone. Just think of an important decision that you are finding it hard to make. Now, you have to look at the decision while wearing each of the 6 hats. Each thinking hat represents a style of thinking, and each hat is a different colour. Let's have a look at each of them in turn. It will have to be brief, but we can go into more detail in the next training session. With the white hat, you focus on all of the data available. You see what you can learn from the information. You identify gaps in your knowledge, and you do what you can to fill them in. You analyse previous similar cases and try to learn from them. When you are wearing the red hat, you face the decision with intuition and emotion. You follow your gut instinct, and you also think about how other people will react emotionally to your decision. The green hat is the creative hat. This is where you try to think of creative solutions to a problem. There are lots of creative tools that you can use, but we haven't got time to talk about them right now. The yellow hat is your optimist hat. It helps you to see all the benefits of the decision and spot the opportunities that arise from it. Wearing your yellow hat helps you to keep going when things look grim. When you've got the black hat on, you become a pessimist. You are on the defensive. You are cautious and you think of all the things that could go wrong with a particular decision. This is useful because it helps you to identify weak points so that you can eliminate them. Thinking with your black hat on will make your plan stronger. It's the most interesting of the hats for me. That's because I think most successful people are used to thinking positively, and so they can't always see problems in advance. Finally, the blue hat represents control. This is the hat worn by people who chair meetings. When we are running out of ideas in a meeting, the blue hat might tell everybody to put their green hats on. When it's important to consider how a decision will affect the feelings of others, the blue hat will instruct everybody to put their red hats on, and so on. You can use the 6 thinking hats technique alone or in meetings. I'm afraid I haven't got enough time to go into more detail here, but I think I've covered the main ideas. In the next session, we'll look at a practical example.
This recording was brought to you by the British Council. To find out more and to access language activities and audio scripts, visit our Learn English website at www.britishcouncil.org/learnenglish.
Tell me, Mr. Griffin, are diversity risks really still an issue? Aren't companies these days dealing with diversity?
Oh, yes, they are very much an issue. We have come a long way since those days when employers were allowed to discriminate against job candidates just because of their race or their sex. The trouble is, the boundaries of diversity and discrimination are widening. Companies have a lot more to consider than a person's skin colour or a person's gender.
So, can you give listeners an example of what kind of things you are referring to here?
OK, let's see. Well, one growing area of discrimination is ageism. In 1998, companies in the United States had to pay out more than $55 million to employers who had filed age-related discrimination complaints against their companies. That's a lot of money.
Phew. So, how should companies protect themselves from this kind of thing?
Well, first of all, they should think carefully about their recruitment policies, and then they should take out insurance to cover themselves.
Well, isn't that expensive? For the companies, I mean.
No, not as expensive as you might think. These days, most small and medium-sized organisations take out EPLI. That's Employment Practices Liability Insurance. The cost of the insurance has fallen over the years, and if a company isn't covered and loses a discrimination case, well, let's just say this is the cheaper option.
You've mentioned ageism as a growing concern, but what other kinds of diversity should managers be aware of?
Well, you'd probably be surprised to hear about some. Discrimination against single people, against married parents, against people who are too tall, too short, too heavy.
Really?
Oh, yes. Security firms are a good example here. They typically state that their employees need to be over or under a certain height or weight. They claim it's necessary for the job. But there have been cases where people have claimed discrimination.
And won?
Sometimes, yes. Then there are people with a criminal background. Employers used to feel justified in turning away job applicants just because they'd been in trouble with the law.
Isn't that still the case?
No, not exactly. The law states that employers can only reject a job applicant with a criminal record if the crime bears a direct relation to the job in question. So, somebody who has served a sentence for, let's say, stealing cars would be all right in a job as a kitchen porter.
And, Mr. Griffin, tell me, how many people actually go through with their threats to sue a company for discrimination?
Well, I haven't got the latest figures for the UK, but in the United States, the Equal Opportunities Commission receive around 85,000 complaints every year. And that figure is rising. Race and sex account for most of the complaints that are filed, but age discrimination is on the increase too.
So, any words of advice for risk managers?
Well, first of all, make sure that you have adequate insurance. Then address the issues of diversity from within the organisation. Get the employees involved. Celebrate the differences and try to build up a reputation as a fair employer. And remember, it is worth investing time and effort in addressing these issues because statistics have shown that you're much more likely to be sued by an employee than a third party.
Mahesh, you trained as a classical Indian musician, but now you spend most of your time playing records in nightclubs. They're two very different things.
Well, yes, they are. The two worlds are very different, but there is something that connects them.
And what's that?
Rhythm. An interest in rhythm. Rhythm is fundamental to everything that I do, whether it's the rhythmic section of a classical Indian raga or some Asian underground electronic beats in a club.
And you mix the two things, don't you?
Yes, I've played live tabla to electronic accompaniment in clubs in Europe.
How has that gone down?
Really well. I think people are getting bored of ordinary clubs and faceless DJs. Some live music is a great addition.
And have you tried DJing for a classical Indian audience, on the other hand?
No, I'm not quite sure the world's ready for that yet. Still, it's an interesting idea.
How are audiences for your music different in India and in Europe?
Well, the classical audiences are far more sedate in Europe than in India.
How do you mean?
Well, in the West, people think they have to respect the music, and to show their respect, they all sit there very quietly, as if they are at a museum or something.
And in India?
People participate much more. They'll clap when they appreciate something and shout when they don't.
Finally, Mahesh, what does the future hold for you?
A new record in the autumn. Then next year, I'm looking forward to a new collaboration with some Latin American musicians. I'm always looking for new frontiers.
Hello and welcome to this Learn English Professionals recording, brought to you by the British Council. To find out more and to access language activities and audio scripts, visit our Learn English website at www.britishcouncil.org/Learn English.
Medical English. An interview with a doctor.
Today I'm talking to Rajan Mehta, a retired doctor. Good afternoon, Rajan.
Good afternoon.
Now, you're originally from Mumbai and you came to work as a doctor in the UK. When was this?
In the early 60s, 1962, to be exact.
And why did you come to the UK?
Well, it was quite common in those days. Experience of working in the British National Health Service was highly valued in India. I had just finished my medical degree and I thought this would be a good way to get experience. I only intended to stay for 5 years while I completed my postgraduate studies.
So why did you stay longer?
2 reasons, really. The first is that I thoroughly enjoyed working for the NHS. The clinical training I received was fantastic, and I worked alongside some excellent consultants and learned a lot. And the second reason is that I met my wife, who was working as a pediatric nurse.
Ah, and so you continued working in the NHS until you retired?
That's correct. First as a pediatrician, and then later I retrained as a GP.
You must have seen a lot of changes in the National Health Service. What was it like when you first came here?
It was excellent. I think that there was a lot of respect for the medical profession, maybe more than there is now, and patients had a lot of faith in their doctors. There weren't so many problems with the long waiting lists, and new advances in areas such as organ transplants made it an exciting profession to be in.
Yes, it must have been. Did you have any problems when you first started working in Britain?
Well, yes. My first placement was in a hospital in the northeast of England, and I had real problems understanding what people were saying to me, which came as quite a shock, as I thought I had rather good English. Eventually, I confessed to a colleague that I sometimes couldn't understand what my patients were saying, and she admitted that she had the same problem, as she came from a different part of the country.
Yes, some regional accents can be quite difficult to understand. One last question. Do you ever regret not returning to India?
No, not really. Of course, I missed my family, but my brother also came to England to live, and I returned quite regularly to visit my parents while they were alive. And I married an English woman and had children here, so England soon became home.
Rajan, thank you very much for coming in and talking to me.
It's been a pleasure.
This recording was brought to you by the British Council. To find out more and to access language activities and audio scripts, visit our Learn English website at www.britishcouncil.org/Learn English.